You're looking at one of the best performance bargains in 2023. Essentially, you have a sedan or liftback version of the Volkswagen Golf GTI. That's right, this has a Golf GTI motor, it's front-wheel drive, has a 7-speed dual clutch, except this is a Skoda Octavia RS. And so for around $55,000, I reckon this is one of the best performance deals you can get right now. So what is a Skoda Octavia RS? Well, it takes a Skoda Octavia and makes it a lot more exciting to drive. Well, it looks more interesting with this blacked out badge and RS badge up here, and you get all these black accents down below and a more aggressive looking front end. The Skoda Octavia is already a good looking car, but this just looks a whole lot meaner and, to be honest, a whole lot cooler. You're getting these matrix LED lights up front, which are awesome. They do an amazing job of blocking out independent parts of the light to avoid dazzling you and other drivers. So I absolutely love these matrix LED lights, which come as standard on the Octavia RS. Underneath this bonnet, which has gas struts, you're getting a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged motor, the same one you'll find in a Golf GTI, which is the EA888 motor, pushing 180 kilowatts and 370 newton meters of torque, which is awesome to have up front in this family car. And you've also got a clever little thing for the washer fluid, which is actually an inbuilt funnel, making it easier to avoid spilling everything in the engine bay when you need to fill up that. Now you get 19-inch wheels, which I absolutely adore the design of these, and in here you also get some red brake calipers as well. This paint here is a $500 extra, and guess what? A searing acid green known as Mamba green is a standard color, no cost option on the Octavia RS, and I have yet to see one on the road, but to be honest, I would absolutely applaud you if you're brave enough to get that, because I think it looks really cool. We get keyless entry and locking here on the side, we get more aggressive side skirts, and we get some gloss black around the window surrounds, and also we get this pretty cool rear deck lid spoiler. And what's cool is that this deck lid spoiler is finished in a metallic paint. You've also got blacked out badges as well, another RS badge back here, and you get twin exit exhaust pipes. Now, they have larger surrounds, but there are real pipes through there. There is no fakery going on here. And here's what they sound like, but I'll warn you, you will be a little disappointed. So this isn't a traditional sedan, it's got a hatch opening, which makes this Skoda a liftback. That means you get tons of space back here. You get a boot floor, which also has a reversible mat, which means you can put dirty stuff on this like rubber side so you don't get it into your carpet. You have cubbies on either side with removable walls to make it easier to customize this space. You have pull tabs to pull down that second row. You have a ski pass through as well to the second row. You have this little cargo net here. So you have a very practical space. And good news is that underneath the boot floor here, you do have a spare tire and everything you need to change one. And of course you get this hard parcel shelf here as well. And there's a 12-volt socket to charge things in the back. And this is a big reason why people might choose the Skoda Octavia RS over, say, something like a hatchback, because you still get a hatchback opening, but you get a sexier looking car, but you still have acres of space back here, which means you're not compromising on practicality. Now here in the back, I do have a very comfortable back seat. I have plenty of supports. It's all cloth back here. I've red stitching, and I have okay amounts of knee room, decent amounts of feet room, but my headroom's a bit compromised because of this sloping roofline compared to something like a hatchback. Now, very comfortable headrest, so I love that. I have window shades here as well, and I have a little bit of storage with some carpeting in those storage areas to stop things making a loud sound when they bash against the plastic, which is nice that it's all carpeted in there. I have my own air vents, and I have also 2 USB-Cs back here. And I have 2 USB-C ports back here as well. But there's a very large exhaust tunnel here, which is going to be a bit of a problem if you want to let anyone sit in this middle seat. But thankfully, this middle seat is pretty wide, so you should be okay for just a small amount of time with 3 adults in the back. And you have access to some easy to access ISOFIX points in the back for car seats. Now, this middle seat does have an armrest, which pops down like this, relatively comfortable. And then you have some cup holders, pretty normal, but they are very, very small cup holders. But what you do have is a little area which you go, what's that for? Well, this accessory here just plugs into this little socket like that, and you have yourself a tablet or phone holder, which is very, very nice. And that's just something that, you know, it's a bit future-proof, so there's no point putting in screens in cars when things get outdated super quickly, but at least here you have something that can hold your modern-day device without having to worry about holding it here, and it's just a nicer way to enjoy entertainment in the back seat. Now, I love the door feel of Skodas. They just feel very quality, and I also love this RS interior. Let me start this thing up. The push button starts on the steering column, something I've never really loved, but I've grown to get used to here in this Skoda. Now, we have some pretty nice materials up top. We don't have a heads-up display, but we have nice suede material up on the dash with red stitching running through it. We also have this matte faux carbon fiber, but because it's matte and the way it's finished, it does look pretty convincing, which makes me not really that offended that we have fake carbon fiber so prominent here in the dashboard. I actually think it looks quite good here. We have some scratchier plastics as we go further down in the doors, but to be honest, the quality in here is so good. Skodas are not cheap anymore on the interiors. They make very, very good interiors, especially with the steering wheel here, nice and chunky, leather wrapped, love it. It's also got red stitching around here as well. And then we have cool things like a digital driver's display, and we also have this big screen here on the left. What I love about the screen is that even though it's popped out of the dashboard, it's down below the belt line of this dashboard, which is quite cool because it means it's not impeding our vision and it goes nicely integrated into this dash. The system here is part of the controversial infotainment screens that Volkswagen rolled out in their modern day cars. They've hidden a lot of things in the screen and people complained about it being a bit hard to use. And look, you grow used to it, but I think Skoda have put the best implementation of the screen because they've gone, okay, how do we work this out for our customers? Well, they put two big home buttons and a menu button here on the left-hand side to make that easier, just hard buttons that are touch sensitive to make sure that you can sort of navigate this screen easily. You've also got the climate sliders like you'll see in the Golf GTI, which is a major plus point because those were just a bit too confusing since this bottom part is not backlit. Instead, it's just a giant volume slider, which is easy enough to navigate, which is something that, you know, even if it's not backlit, you know that's just the volume slider and not the climate controls as well. Now, your climate controls are all hidden in the screen here and they're easy enough to tap on and go through the settings, so I didn't find that too difficult. And also you do have a hard button here to quickly access them as well. And that's right, you have hard buttons down here for your car controls, your drive modes, your parking assists, which are all very, very useful instead of hunting through them on this screen. And we of course have wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. We have a wireless phone charger here, two USB-C ports, and we also do have a drive-by-wire shifter, which looks beautifully finished here, and it doesn't look cheap or chintzy at all. I really do like the finish, and it just feels nice and premium to engage with, and a nice big park button there as well. They also do have these bucket seats I'm sitting in, which are cloth, not a detractor at all. I'm not going to detract this for not having leather because this just feels right at home. I love these cloth seats, and look, cloth is often underrated. This is really quite nice, and it's got great red highlights and red stitching, and I also love the fact you got the RS badge and plenty of lateral support when you decide to get a bit enthusiastic with this car. Now, that sound on the outside was a bit disappointing, but Skoda makes up for it in a weird way using the speakers. That's right, as you can hear, there's a rumbling happening in the background, and that's meant to emulate an engine sound that is not made by this motor. Now, initially I thought it sounded a little bit like a V8 because 4 cylinders is a derivative of a V8, but instead people have informed me that it's actually meant to be similarly sounding to a 5-cylinder. So if you close your eyes, it's almost like you got an Audi RS3 on a budget. Now, to really enhance that sound, you'll want to go into sport mode here, and that's when you're really gonna hear it. Yeah, so not my favorite sound of all time, but to be honest, it does make this car sound a bit more premium than it actually is. So that little 4-cylinder sound you can hear when you're in eco mode, and this is what it sounds like. Nothing too special, but then when you go ahead and whack it into normal, for example, even, that extra bit of bass note that you get through the speakers just feels like you're in a bigger, more powerful car than you actually are. Now, when we're in sport mode, we can go into our quick menu here and go into ESC Sport, because this car does have launch control, which means you put your foot on the brake like this, your foot on the accelerator, launch control program active, and oh, and those wheels get spinning. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this thing, it's a bit of a monster when it comes to getting off the line, because all that power, 370 newton meters of torque, which isn't a small amount of torque, is being sent just to those front wheels. And unfortunately, this car doesn't really have the grip from the get-go because it's not all-wheel drive, of course, so you will get some tire spin, but then it's really nice to have that ease of access for that launch control, especially with this 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, the shifts are nice and snappy. You've got a S mode for sport mode, which makes this thing feel far more engaging to drive. And look, the Golf GTI just feels a little bit more dynamic. It's a smaller car, it dances around a little bit, it just feels like a more playful car if you want something that's just a bit more engaging, where the Octavia RS is sort of like a more grown-up car. It's a bit more relaxed, it's a bit more stable through corners, and it's something that's a bit more comfortable to drive day to day, thanks to those 19-inch wheels, but at the same time, it's going to feel like a little bit more stiff than a normal Octavia because you just can't get rid of that more aggressive setup that this car's been tuned with. And yeah, it's just a more subtle drive. But then that doesn't mean you can't have fun in it. I really enjoy driving around in this thing. It's a lot of fun. Now the brakes on this thing do work pretty well. So if we're going to go for an emergency stop in 3, 2, 1, and yeah, it hooks up pretty well. So those brakes do a good job, and ultimately there is no real big complaints with this car that I have. Now, driving day to day, you have things like radar cruise control, auto lane keep assist, all those good things that make the daily grind just a bit easier to bear. Now the speaker system in here is pretty fine, even though it's not an upgraded system, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. The wireless Apple CarPlay works flawlessly every time in this car, except when you go to underground car parks, it seems to throw it a little bit. Now road noise is pretty minimal in this car, although there is a bit of tire noise, and ultimately what you have here is a really comfortable hot hatch, except it's in the shape of a sedan with a liftback. Now I love the display here, how it tells you how much power you're putting down, which is pretty exciting. It tells you how many kilowatts you're pushing out of this motor, which is pretty cool, and you can actually hide away additional information if you don't need it. Now look, I like the i30 sedan N, but that is not an easy car to live with day to day. It's noisy, it doesn't have as comfortable features, and it's not as well insulated as this car. So this is like a premium European sedan with a performance motor underneath the hood, which is a lot of fun. And you just drop down a couple of gears, you gun it, it was just so much fun. That's what it does to you. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing can actually move. And like, you get surprised because it's so easy on the low end. But then when you start to really push it, you go, whoa, this thing actually can drive. Everyone's obsessed with SUVs, so it's rare to find a car like this with a proper performance motor, proper performance upgrades that make this thing a lot of fun to drive, including things like launch control, and it feels like a luxurious European car. That's what makes this Skoda so great, and it's why I would absolutely tell you to go and buy one if you're looking for a performance European car, because this is a great way to get around. It's comfortable, it's also got plenty of kick behind it as well, but if you're looking for something a bit more edgy, you might be better off getting something like a Subaru WRX manual if that's what you're going for, or if you want something a bit louder and a bit more track focused and maybe a bit more aggressive, then you'd be better off with something like a Hyundai i30 Sedan N. But to be honest, if you're looking for a car that can do it all, plus has a performance edge to it, the Skoda Octavia RS would be my pick. And it's basically a hatchback without the hatchback body style. Now, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more Skoda reviews here on this channel, make sure you hit subscribe down below. If you want to see more car content, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Product Review Cars, and let me know down in the comments, would you buy a Golf GTI or would you buy one of these? I'll see you in the next one.